El hospital.
Okay, we've leveled up and it is time to pick another language. Morfar är tröttare än vanligt. Maten är färdig. And let's see what we're doing when we get back. Greek! We're doing Greek when we get back. Ben neredeyse her gün okula giderim. Fun fact. Turkish. Hello, Shakespeare. How you doing? Fun fact, in Spanish, the word for bishop in chess is alfil. And that actually comes from Arabic. Fil. The same word fil as this. Meaning elephant, because the bishop traditionally was to represent elephant units somehow. Similarly, in Russian, the word for bishop is sword, and that also means elephant. Okay. 10-159. Haven't made a huge dent in it, but we're getting there. Okay, gonna do some Chinese now. Nej. Nej. Man. Igen. Jo. 5. Ducks are drinking wine. Bambas. Bamba, okay, Bambas is ducks. Okay, I have now leveled up. Let's see what the XP situation is now. 10,340 out of 12,500. And, as always, viewers can choose my next language for me just with a follow and a $5 to my Patreon. I buy a computer or quack, and here's another example. I like to point these out. For this word for or, quack sounds vaguely like Hogun and the hok in Hogun in Korean or waku in Japanese, and that appears it is the exact same kind of character. Oh, I see. This is. Hello and welcome to Hyperpolyglotting with Elise, where we're going to be continuing the Duolingo Speedrun and maybe re-recording some stuff that there was a bit that I did just spontaneously while doing some Duolingo stories the other day, and it was great, and I was going to clip it for content. You were going to love it, and I had the microphone turned off, so when I went to go and edit and clip it and do the sound and everything, all there was the sound of Duolingo and nothing from me. So I might see if I can find some way to recreate that. And let's just have a check-in. So let me just make sure I can actually see everything I need to be seeing. And the crop looks the way it should. Not quite. Okay, there we go. Let's have a look at the XP situation and league table standings and stuff. And that. And hold on. Okay, there we go. Now I can see everything. So I'm in second in the Emerald League, which seems to be somewhat less of a sprint than the Ruby League was. 1800 odd XP below Alejandro 96, who's in first. And we're going to see if we can close that gap a little bit, shall we?
Hiru.
晩ご飯を食べます。
I eat dinner. It also be will eat dinner, and it doesn't have to be I.
この晩ご飯は美味しいです。この晩ご飯
は
美味しいです。
This dinner is tasty. This is a tasty dinner.
晩
千
万円昼
その椅子はいくらですか？その椅子はいくらですか？
この朝ご飯はおいしいです。
お昼ご飯を食べます。
お昼
ご飯を
食べます。
午前8時に朝ごはんを食べます。
I eat breakfast at 8 a.m. その机はいくらですか？ And it's worth noting that 机 is one common word in Japanese for desk, but you also very often hear desk.
朝ごはんを食べます。
午前11時にお昼ご飯を食べます。
I eat lunch at 11 a.m.
このお昼ご飯は美味しいです。
This lunch is delicious. Actually, let me try. See if it'll take a synonym. Because it. Yes, okay. Very good.
Bang.
And, okay, I've seen this exact same one before on here. And it's the first, and it amazes me since I imagine it's an AI thing that is selecting these, that this is the first time in either of the Chinese character languages that they've got on here, Chinese and Japanese, that we have two characters that both are pronounced bang. See, it even has the pronunciation right. But if you select this one, it will mark it wrong. Even though it says the correct characters, which would suggest, I had initially thought, that you could pick more than one when there's more than one right one. 午前11時にお昼ご飯を食べます。I see another viewer has shown up. Hello, other viewer. Good to see you. What we're doing right now is we're just leveling up in Japanese until we get to Legendary in order to get some XP, and after that we're gonna just sort of randomly jet around amongst the 36 languages, including 2 that I'm doing both from Japanese and from English, that I've got going on here. And people can select my next language as well for me out of all the languages on Duolingo by giving me a follow or subscribe on YouTube and joining my Patreon at the $5 tier, which also gives you early access to my video series that I've just started making, which is Learn Korean Through Music.
午後7時に晩ご飯を食べます。
I eat dinner at 7 p.m. 晩ご飯を午後7時に食べます。This is a correct word order. Let's see if it'll accept it. Hey, good on you. その menu.
メニュー
There's another way of saying that menu. If it is a menu that is far away, it is away from both you and the person you're talking to, and that is ano menu.
まずいです。まずいです。
It tastes bad, or it was a bad idea. 食堂.
食堂
There's another set of kanji that also means shokudo, and it also but it means esophagus.
このお茶はまずいです。
この
この
お茶は
は
まずいです。
です
This tea sucks. ステーキ
ステーキは
食べません。
あのテーブルはいくらですか？
あのテーブルはいくらですか？どの机ですか？
あの椅子はいくらですか？
How much is that chair?
円
食堂
食堂
昼
昼
千
千
百
百
どのテーブルですか？
Which table? こ
こ
こ
こは食堂です。
食堂で朝ごはんを食べます。
I eat breakfast in the canteen. Now, the same characters, it's worth noting, as shokudo, pronounced shiktang, in Korean mean restaurant.
これはまずいです。
This tastes bad.
英語でお願いします。
Okay, speak English.
あの机はいくらですか？
How much is that desk?
食堂でお昼ご飯を食べます。
I eat lunch in the cafeteria. このステーキは
このステーキはおいしいですね。
どの
どの
椅子
椅子
で
ですす
か？
か？
4 of 6. 好き
好き
熱いお茶です。
熱
熱い
お
お茶
茶です。
です。
パンが熱いです。
The bread is hot.
水は好きじゃないです。
水は
は
好
好き
き
じゃ
じゃない
ない
で。
です
ご
ご
飯
飯は
は熱いで
熱
す。
です。
お茶が冷たいです。
お茶が
が冷
冷た
たい
いで。
です
野菜は好きじゃないです。
I do not like vegetables. まあ、
まん
好き、
好き
熱い、
熱い
昼、
昼
冷たい。
冷たい
水
水
は
は好きじ
じ
ゃ
ゃない
ない
です。
です。 肉は好きじゃないです。
I don't like meat. 水は
が
冷たい
冷
です。
です
冷たい。
冷たい
まん
まん円
熱い。
熱い好き
肉は
は
好
好
き
き
じゃ
じゃ
ない
ない
で。
ですす。
冷たいご飯があります。
There is cold rice.
ご飯が好きです。
I like rice. Although, actually, this can also just, I mean, often, gohan can mean, in a broad sense, just food. This is also the same in, like, in Vietnamese and Korean. Like, if you want to say just sort of eat without any specified object, the way you say that is pap mok ta, which literally means to eat rice. But it just means to eat. Or ăn cơm in Vietnamese, which also means to eat rice, but is often just used to mean to eat without really specifying what it is that you are eating. パンが熱いです。お茶が冷たいです。Now, one thing to note is it keeps on saying ga here. It doesn't have to be ga. That's depending entirely on your context. Yeah, in a decontextualized sentence like this, it is very hard to specify which one would be correct, because it is everything to do with, say, for example, whether this T has been mentioned previously, and all sorts of other things go into the decision whether you'd say wa or ga. Yasui.
安い。
高い
高い
です。
です。
このご飯は甘いです。
この
この
ご
ご飯
飯は
は
甘いです。
です。
魚は
魚
が
が
嫌いです。
です。
甘いパンを食べます。
甘い
甘い
パ
パン
ンを
を
食べ
食べ
ま。
ますす。
肉は
には
高いで
高い
す。
です。
野菜は安いです。
野菜は
は安い
です。
です。
あ、今頃安い食べ物なんかねえだろうが。
このケーキは美味しいです。
This cake is delicious. 甘い。
甘い。
ま
満。
あ、安い。
安い。
嫌い。
嫌い。
高い肉を食べます。
I eat expensive meat. That's an interesting rhyme you've got there. 安い。
安い。
いる。
昼。
甘い。
甘い。
嫌い。
嫌い。
まあ、
晩。
高いです。
it is expensive. Actually, let me just see. It should also say ha. This is also correct. Ha, because takai, its main meaning is like the height of a thing. But it also means expensive in the sense of the height of the price. So it should mark this correct if they've taken that into account. And it did.
あれは安いですか？
Is that cheap?
この椅子は安いです。
This chair is cheap.
ケーキが嫌いです。
I do not like cake. Now, this could be cake or it could be the cake. Let's see if it'll accept the cake. Yes, it did. Good. ケーキ
ケー
が
キが
嫌い
嫌い
です。
です。
And once again, we have a situation where this could be keiki wa kirai desu. Whether you use wa or ga depends a whole lot on context, and there is none here. 甘い
甘い
パン
パン
を
を
食べ
食べ
ます。
ます。
There we go. We've leveled up. Menu
メニューレストランはどこですか？
where Alex, where is the restaurant? This could also be a restaurant. Restaurant.
レストラン。
メニューをください。
Menu, please. That could also be the menu, please. レストラン
レストランは
ど
どこ
こです
です
か？
か？
このご飯は辛いです。
This rice is spicy. Sounds good. I could go for spicy rice. 辛いですか?
ですか。
このお茶は辛いですね。
This tea is spicy. この
このご飯は辛いです。
これはいくらですか？
How much is this? それで、あれはいくらですか？
このリンゴはいくらですか？
How much is this apple? 英語
の
メニューはありますか？
あれはいくらですか？
How much is that? And again, this is for are is when it is not near you or the person you're talking to. If you're talking about something that is like right by the person you're talking to, then you would say それはいくらですか?このリンゴはいくらですか?
これはメニューですか？
Is this a menu?
レストランにテーブルはいくつありますか？
How many tables are there in the restaurant? 100円です。
千る
万円
100
100円です。
It is 100 yen. 1100円です。100円8千万
1100円です。
It is 1100 yen. 1万1100円です。
1万円です。
Is 10,000 yen. Not an extra space, it's a comma. No. 1万1000円です。
1万1100円です。
It is... My headphones are acting really weird.
1万円です。
1万1000円です。
May have to take a little break to get my other earphones, which I think are upstairs. 部屋には100人がいます。
部屋には100人がいます。
There are in the room. Okay. And I am going to just take a little break right now to just get my other headphones because this is beginning to get to be a bit of a pain in the ass, the way that is cutting in and out like that. And I will see you then. Perfect. Okay, 3 of 4.
El hospital.
Okay, we've leveled up and it is time to pick another language. Morfar är tröttare än vanligt. Maten är färdig. And let's see what we're doing when we get back. Greek. We're doing Greek when we get back. Fun fact. Turkish. Hello, Shakespeare. How you doing? Fun fact, in Spanish, the word for bishop in chess is alfil. And that actually comes from Arabic. Fil. The same word fil as this. Meaning elephant, because the bishop traditionally was to represent elephant units somehow. Similarly, in Russian, the word for bishop is sword, and that also means elephant. Okay. 10:159. Haven't made a huge dent in it, but we're getting there. Okay, gonna do some Chinese now. Night. Night. Month. Yen. Yo. 5. Ducks are drinking wine. Bakbaz. Bakbaz? Okay, Bakbaz is ducks. Okay, I have now leveled up. Let's see what the XP situation is now. 10,340 out of 12,500. And as always, viewers can choose my next language for me just with a follow and a $5 to my Patreon. I buy a computer or quack. And here's another example. I like to point these out. For this word for or, but sounds vaguely like hogun and the hok in hogun in Korean or waku in Japanese, and that means it is the exact same kind of character. Oh, I see. This is dikhe ishai fui, which means do you want food? But yeah. Are you hungry? That kind of thing. How are the boys? Cocine da boy. Posso milao. Pote. When is it? Proteine. Udros. Protoculo. In the designated chicken-eating area, obviously.
Li. Monsieur.
See.
Livre. Liwe livre.
Mathieu.
Yeah.
Yeah. Si. Isopi. Mathieu. Proč? Inte. Počkej. A. Si.
Oilen coginio panas. Jacob. Hefed. 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 Hek. 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 Mwalimu.
This Saturday. And it's from Muallim.
Juma ni mwalimu mke.
Oh, things do cat suns. Meow, and the pictures of the fish. That's they were proud.
Syöpö. Kupu. Yrittävä. Uraista.
Okay, I'm back with headphones that hopefully aren't going to be constantly cutting in and out. I don't know what that's about. That's a new development, and it is annoying the shit out of me. So hopefully it will not be a long-term development. Okay, and we're still in Japanese, and we're on level 4. Oh, it occurs to me I do need to switch the audio. Let's go though. Empao. Okay. Restaurant.
メニューをください。
A menu, please. One weakness of this, I have to say, is you level up in each skill, and they don't add, for the most part, anything new. It's not new material. It's just, yeah, they're just constantly throwing the same stuff at you, but from a slightly different angle. And there's a place for that, definitely. But I would want to see some more complicated sentences and stuff, maybe. And introducing more vocabulary words. レストランはどこですか?
レストラン。
Restaurant. このご飯は辛いです。だから好きなんだ。
いくらですか?
How much is it? このリンゴはいくらですか?
辛いですか?
It's spicy. 辛くなきゃいらないから。Okay, let me just try. メニューですかこれ。This is a very common way of saying this in colloquial context. Will it accept it? No, it will not. It should, though.
このご飯は辛いです。
This rice is spicy. Yum. 辛いですか?
英語のメニューはありますか?
Is there an English menu? これはいくらですか?
このリンゴはいくらですか?
How much is this apple? いくらですか?
これはメニューですか?
Is this a menu? いや、広辞苑だよ。食べ物と値段ばかり並んでる広辞苑のコピーなんだ。メニューだろうが。レストランにテーブルはいくつありますか? And I see somebody has joined us. Welcome. We are just leveling up through some Japanese and the quest to get some more legendaries and try to move up, get to the top of the Emerald League. And after that, we're going to be sort of randomly zapping through the languages, as is the customary way we do things around here. これはメニューですか?
100円です。
It is 100 yen. 1100円です。や。万。 円、
円、
千、
千、
百。
百。
1100円です。
It is 1100 yen. Okay, weird. When I add the comma for 11,000 and 11,100 yen, it says I put a space in I shouldn't have. But here it has the comma as another correct solution. Eh. 100円
円
で。
ですす。
8、
八、
千、
千、
百。
百。
Oh, I can imagine. What language are you trying to learn? Yeah.
円、
Hello, Ludlow.
万。
1万円です。
It is 10,000 yen. See? Extra space, it says. I mean, it isn't marking it wrong, so I'm not but a bit inconsistent. 1万
万。
1000円
です。
11,100円です。
It is 11,100 yen. 1万
円
で。
ですす。
1万1000円です。
It is 11,000. Ah, okay. And, well, what methods are you using? I might be able to help you out with that a bit. 1万
万。
1100円で。
です
部屋には100人がいます。
There are 100 people in the room. Ah, cool. Yeah, I mean, Spanish is never a bad idea in the U.S. A third of the population are native speakers of it. This country it's weird because it's like, this is a very multilingual country that does not want to acknowledge that it is a multilingual country. Like, Spanish has been a major part of the linguistic landscape in this country for, well, basically ever since ever since the U.S. nicked the western U.S. off of Spain, who in turn nicked it off the indigenous people who'd been living there for tens of thousands of years. 部屋には
部屋には
100人が
が
います。
ます。
昼、
昼、
朝ごはんを
ご飯を
食べます。
ます。
昼、
昼、
千、
千、
円、
円、
万、
万、
万。
万。
Okay. Well, one tip I would offer you as one of the methods that I've found very, very useful is, do you have any books that you have just read so many times you can just read them over and over that you practically know them by heart?
お昼
ご飯
ご飯を
食べます。
晩ご飯を食べます。
I eat dinner. この朝ごはんは美味しいです。
このお昼ご飯は美味しいで
This
す。
lunch is tasty. 午前
午前
8時
時
に
に
朝
朝
ご飯
ご
を
飯を
食べ
食べ
ま。
ますす。
この晩ご飯は美味しいです。
This dinner is tasty. I'm saying tasty both because that should be in there as a possible translation and because it's fewer keystrokes. そのメニュー
メニュー。
晩 and once again there is more than one character on here that
飯
is 晩 that is also 飯 which this is
晩
this is
晩
晩 this is 晩
晩。
and sometimes this can be 晩 or パン Oh, hello Action 52, thank you for the follow. But
晩
this is the ban they're looking for. この
この
晩ご飯はご飯
ご飯
は
は
美味しいです。
午前8時に朝ごはんを食べます。
I eat breakfast at 8 a.m. It is not at all impossible that such a thing might exist. That seems like the sort of thing that almost certainly would. But, like, for example, for me, one of the books that I always try to find in my target language when I'm starting to pick up a new one is John Grisham's The Firm, just because it just happens to be... Hello, Action 52. Thank you for the follow. It just happens to be a book that I had read sometime in the early 90s and liked, and so I just happened to find that in a lot of translated editions. And it really is useful because when you know the book practically by heart, and it also works with things like dubs of films and stuff like that potentially as well, then you can focus on how they say things. その机は
その机はい
くら
く
ですか？万、
万
千、
千
円、
円
晩、
晩
昼。
昼
午前11時にお昼ご飯を食べ
Ate
ます。
lunch at 11 a.m.
その椅子はいくらですか？
How much is that chair? Three of six. 食堂.
食堂
With different kanji, this also means that same word means esophagus. ステーキは食べません。
これはまずいです。
This tastes bad. Mazui can also, in a more extended sense, mean like a bad move, a bad decision. Oh yeah? Which book was it? Is yeah, you can write entire books about trying to understand wanga, and the same thing if for Korean learners with and i or ga. They actually function very similarly. Nun, ga, I, and wa, ga. Oh, Duolingo really doesn't explain it. I mean, that's the thing. That's one of my main criticisms. Because the thing is that the way wa and ga and the Korean counterparts nun and ga require context. You need narrative structure. Yeah, well, that's the thing. They don't. Like, you can actually just say "Heya ni wa hyaku ni imasu." You would need a conversation really in order to fully flesh out the reason why you would say "wa" in some places and "ga" in other places. And the thing about these exercises, these sentences that they throw at you, is that an AI selects them based on quit rates, based on how likely somebody is to quit immediately after doing it. And so it has nothing to do with creating a narrative structure, and that is a major weakness of this method, especially when dealing with things that are totally context dependent, like these particles. このステーキは
このステーキは
美味しいですね。
ね。
円、
円
昼、
昼
百、
百
食堂、
食堂
千。
千
Oh, neat. Ah, você fala português? その椅子
そ
は
はい
くらです
です
か？
か？
食堂で朝ごはんを食べます。
Você é brasileiro? I eat breakfast at... Let me just see if it will take the canteen. Yes, it will. I like to throw these in there because... Yeah, I get annoyed with the correct answers that aren't taken into account. But I do like to just to give a shout out to the course creators when they get other things like canteen is actually the more common word for a cafeteria, like a works cafeteria, something like that, in the Commonwealth, in like Britain, Australia, South Africa, NZ. Not so much. Not so much in Canada, but in the U.S., like North American version is cafeteria, and so I was curious to see if they would take that into account since this is very North America heavy. This English. Sì, Ottenho 20 línguas de trabalho. Sou tradutora. Mas
まずいです
o japonês é uma delas.
どのテーブルですか？
O português também. Traduzo muitos patentes de invenção, coisas assim, do português ao inglês. Which table is it? 食堂で
食堂で
朝ごはんを
ご飯を
食べま
食べ
す。
ます。
And I would note that, see, if you say this, if you write one kanji differently, this is still a totally grammatical sentence. 食堂で朝ごはんを食べます. If you just write hiragana with no kanji in it, no Chinese characters, then it can mean I eat breakfast in the canteen, or it can mean I use my esophagus to eat breakfast.
あの机はいくらですか？
How much is that disc? どのテーブルですか？
テーブルか
あのテーブルはいくらですか？
How much is that table in the window? まず
まずい
いです。
です
Yeah, I mean, like, mazui can also mean, like, one way of saying you shouldn't do something, or you have to do something is, そうしないとまずいぞ。そうしないとまずい. Which means, like, mazui, it's the same mazui, but it can also mean, like, it is unwise, it is ill-considered, it's a bad move. So, like, if something bad happens, if you find yourself in a dodgy situation, in Japanese, one way of just acknowledging this fact is to just, mazui. Well, I grew up with three, with Spanish, German, and English. So those three are sort of
この
Oh,
equal
ステ
to
ーキ
me.
は美味しいね。
This steak is tasty. Now, here's another distinction that's important and never... I mean, in the stories, it starts to get fleshed out. And I can't say enough that the stories are really the best language learning thing they've got on here. I mean, for learning, this is good for, like, testing your progress to a certain extent. But for actually kind of learning, you need that kind of comprehensible input. You need the narrative structure. And it needs to be interesting enough that your brain is really engaged in it. And for things like speech levels, like this is oishii ne. This is plain speech. You would, in Japanese, it's called tameguchi. And this is how you would speak to people who are like close friends or people who are sort of, or like subordinates at work, equal or lower status or things like that, or close like family members. Whereas if you were talking to an adult you didn't know well or somebody who you worked under, you would say like このステーキは美味しいですね. And that is the more polite form. 食堂で
食堂で
お昼ご飯
ご
を
飯を
食
食べ
べます。
ます。
どの机ですか？
Which desk is it? Parfait. Okay. Oh, we're unlocking more stories, are we? Okay. Ski.
好き。
野菜は好きじゃないです。
I don't like vegetables. Let me see. If I just do veg, is it going to accept it? Yeah, well, it should do. And it would save me keystrokes. パンが熱いです。
水は好きじゃないです。
I don't like water. Like, for example, a thing about this is these sentences with these implied subjects, because there's nothing that actually says who doesn't like the water. It can actually mean anyone. Anyone doesn't like water. It could be referring to you. It can be referring to me. He, she, they. It's all totally context dependent. And the stories, using the stories, you can kind of get that out there. But other than that, the only option is to explain it directly. Hello, Sigmund Austin Sørensen. Oh, well, I'll have to try veggies. I mean, this is one of the things that I do, is I just kind of test these things out. Like, I was doing that because I'm also doing Chinese and Korean through Japanese, and so I've been testing things like using different pronouns for I to see if they're cool with, like, ore instead of watashi, since the only one that they actually ever use in these things is watashi, which actually isn't one that you need to know more than that. Oh, well, if you say mizu wa suki janai or mizu ga suki janai, then you okay, which was it, wa or ga in that example? Because if it is wa, then it's like that can be changing the subject to water. Like, for example, if I'm listing a bunch of things I hate, and then I want to say, oh, but water. I'm there for some water. I'm down with water. Then you would say mizu wa suki desu. Like, if you're introducing a topic that has not previously been discussed, that is one time where you would tend to use wa. Sort of like we will sometimes use this, and then switch, and suddenly it turns into that in English. So, it becomes that when we both know what I'm talking about. It's this when I'm just bringing it up and I don't know if this is something that we both share awareness of. And it's very similar also with wa and ga, but there are lots of things like that. Lots of different contextual things. Gohan wa atsui desu. Like, you can also say gohan ga atsui desu. Like, for example, let's say you're at dinner and you're not eating. And it's like, what's wrong? Gohan ga atsui desu. It indicates the problem is, mondai wa gohan ga atsui desu. The problem, which is the topic, is that the rice is hot. It tends to be the other way around, actually. It's more wa is when you're sort of shifting over to something new. I don't like meat. Mizu wa suki ja ne desu. Man. Hiru. 冷たい。
冷たい。好き。熱い。
肉は好きじゃない。Now, it should accept this. And it does. Of course, the thing is that 好きじゃない and 好きじゃないです are different politeness levels. And again, this is not something that they really do a good job of fleshing out in these examples. Because to know which politeness level you use, you need to know who you are relative to the person you're talking to. Exactly, it is totally contextual. And that's why contextless phrases, yes, des makes it more polite. Like say, and sometimes you'll have, like, I don't know, I immediately think of Worf in Star Trek The Next Generation, who'll say something and then go like, pause and go, sir. In Japanese, you could do that as well, but then it would be, you would pause, and what you would say after the pause is des. Yeah, exactly. What kind of question you're answering, what you were talking about before. Is this a subject that is, like, common ground for you and the person you're talking to? it is very complex and it's very much a vibe thing. Not des, wa and ga and nun and ga in Korean are very much a vibe thing, and you learn, and you just kind of learn by doing to some extent to really completely get the full feeling of exactly when you're doing it. It's one of the instinctual things that you really know that you're picking it up when you actually can tell when it feels weird to say it, when it feels weird to say it, when it's being used wrong. So much of language learning is about developing those instincts.
暑い
Sigmund Osten Sørensen, kommer du fra Norge? Metai.
冷たい
Danmark. Men,
満
ja,
円
ski.
好き
Ocha wa tsumetai desu.
ご飯は熱いです。
The rice is hot. 卵が好きです。
パンが熱いです。
The bread is hot. Yeah, I mean, it's all about what kind of question you're answering and all sorts of shit like that. It is easily one of the things that is most complicated in Japanese behind, like, kanji. Well, I don't think explicit instruction. I mean, explicit instruction has its place. Sometimes you just need to say what's going on, and it helps you to understand it. I mean, to a certain, but in the end, we are also. It turns out it's interesting. There's a lot of language acquisition research that is now really casting doubt on this idea of the critical period. That it's just different for children and that. Because what is starting to, like 40 years of research indicates is that it isn't so much that little kids just learn languages differently. It's that the way that we teach languages in school just sucks shit and is totally not compatible with the way our brains acquire language. So I think to a certain extent, like explicit grammar instruction turns out to be totally. Oh, first it was Norwegian, then it was Danish. Explicit grammar instruction does not turn out to be a very effective way of teaching these things. Like, you can get especially with vibe stuff, like, wa and ga. Like, you can give sort of a general gist of what's going on with those. But it's the context. It's, you acquire the distinction in context, and the more context that you get, the more you get to hear, native speakers naturally choosing one or the other in a particular situation. The more you will develop. Like, nobody really, I will say I read a lot of explicit explanations on wa and ga when I was first learning and everything. That didn't help me. What helped me was reading lots of Japanese novels and books and law books and all sorts of shit, listening to like Japanese movies and things like that. Well, it's the exposure, but it's also the quantity, but it's also the quality of the exposure, because a lot of the teaching methods in the language school don't take advantage of the way humans acquire this stuff. So there will be a lot of drill and a lot of memorization and explicit explanations and things like that, and correcting errors, and it turns out that stuff doesn't really statistically prove to work all that well. Yeah, I mean, in fact, I would say between school and the methods that I sort of came up with through trial and error for myself, school was easily like way down on the league table of reasons I learned languages well. Okay. 冷たい
冷たい
ご
ご
飯
飯
があります。
水が冷たいです。
The water is cold. See here, when you say 水が冷たいです. I immediately see this is one of the rare cases in these example sentences where I immediately have a strong feeling about the versus no article, because mizu ga tsubetai indicates that there is water that we've been previously talking about that is common knowledge between me and the person I'm talking to, and I am describing a feature of that water. Yeah, like, I mean, I only recently really even heard of this, the comprehensible input research and all that Stephen Krashen is
お茶が冷
so
たいです。
passionate about. The tea is cold.
野菜は好きじゃないです。
I don't like veggies. Let's see how that works. Yes, it does indeed. When I first started looking at his lectures on comprehensible input, it was just a moment where it was weird because on the one hand, it was no surprise to me. It was literally, what he was saying was literally the methods that I just through trial and error had arrived at on my own. But on the other hand, the idea that just turns out to be the way, like, through 40 years of looking at people acquiring languages successfully and unsuccessfully, that just turns out to be kind of the way the human language acquisition device, which is the technical term for it, works. That had surprised me a bit, but not totally.
安い
Because I'd already kind of arrived at that. 高い。
高い。
嫌い。
嫌い
甘い。
甘い
熱い。
熱い
安い。
安い
千。
千
野菜は安いです。
です。
Yeah, and here's another example. 野菜は安いです。If this was 野菜が安いです、I would tend towards the vegetables are cheap. It suggests, that they are common knowledge between the speakers. 嫌い。
嫌い
昼。
昼
甘い。
甘い
安い。
安い
晩。
晩
高いです。
no, come on. It is expensive. Okay. お茶は
お茶が
嫌いです。
嫌いです
And here you use ga because the subject is the person who doesn't do the liking. Hirai is a thing that is not liked.
このご飯は甘いです。
Well, it can also mean that there is this water that we both know about, that we both are aware of, like whether it's a glass of water or it's the water outside, it is a common subject of conversation that isn't being introduced for the first time. And when you aren't introducing something for the first time, then the tendency is toward ga. This rice is sweet. But it's best to describe these things in terms of tendencies, because it is very much a vibe thing. ケーキが嫌いです。
です。
この椅子は安いです。
This chair is cheap. 全く違うよ。
この
ご飯
ご
は
飯は
甘い
甘い
です。
です。肉は高いです。
Meat is expensive. 高い
高い
肉
肉を
食べ
食べ
ます。
ます。
ケーキが嫌いです
Yeah. As I said, this is not something that has hard and fast rules. It's more of a tendency. And in storytelling, it doesn't always work quite the same way either. Wa tends to indicate a change of subject a lot of the time as well. I don't like cake. Or that could also be the cake. Cake. What? 甘いですか?
野菜は安いです。
Vegetables are cheap.
あれは安いですか?
Yeah. I mean, those examples are not. Those examples aren't wrong, but it isn't really the only thing. It is not by no means the limit of the thing. There's a lot more going on. Is that cheap? And there are very few really hard and fast rules when it comes to this as well. Okay, time to legendarize. レストラン。
レストラン。
レストランはどこですか?
Where is the restaurant? This could also be where is a restaurant? Menu.
メニュー
を
ください。
レストラン。
辛い
辛い
ですか?
か。メニューをください。
A menu, please. Oh yeah, there are a lot of cases where it makes a big difference in meaning. Because the one other thing about ga is it very specifically turns whatever you're using it in, you're applying it to the subject of the verb. Wa is not necessarily the subject of the verb, it's the topic. But ga is always, whatever has ga in front of it is what is doing whatever the verb is. And so that is something that you always have to be careful about. このご飯は
このご飯は
辛いです。
辛いですか?
Is it spicy? 辛くなきゃ食べないから。このリンゴは
このリンゴはいくらですか? このご飯は辛いです。
This rice is spicy. これはいくらですか?
ですか?
英語のメニューはありますか?
Is there an English menu? あれはいくらですか? I mean, and another thing that it could do a better job with it would of explaining the distinctions between are ko, so, a, do. Kore, sore, are, dore, koko, soko, asoko, doko, etc. Because particularly between soko and koko, for example, or sore and kore, or sore and are, there are fine distinctions going on that you can't really summarize entirely with this and that. Like, sore and are both kind of that, but sore is something that is closer to the person. I mean, if we're talking about physical location, it tends to be what's closer to the person you're talking to. And are is something that is close to neither of us, whereas kore in this sort of a context would be something that is closer to me.
このお茶は辛いですね。
This tea is spicy. いくらですか?
ですか。これはメニューですか?
メニューですかだって。This a menu. 違うよ。これは五輪の書だろうが。Yeah. And then Japanese further complicates it by having different politeness levels that apply to it. So, for example, koko, there is kochira, which is the politest way. Then there's koko, which is sort of mid range and neutral. And then there's kochi, which is plain. Kochi, sochi, achi, dochi. Koko, soko, asoko, doko. Kochira, sochira, achira, dochira. レストランには
2、
テーブルはいく
いくつ
ありま
あり
すか？
ますか？
お安いご用です。1100円です。
100円です。
1万
1万
1100円です。
1100円です。
Oh, well, that is one way that it is used. But in polite speech, it also can refer to a stationary place. Like, if I'm formally introducing a person, I will say, こちらはアクション52です。Because that is just a polite way of saying koko. In fact, when you talk about polite speech in Japanese, it's almost all more vaguer. So it almost all is like more a direction than a point. 100円です。
11100円です。
It is 11,100 yen. 1万円です。
1万1000円です。
It is 11,000 yen. 部屋には
に
あ
は
100人がいます。
1万円です。
It is 10,000 yen. 1万1000円です。
部屋には100人がいます。
There are, I mean, again, people in the room. Okay. 昼。晩ご飯を食べます。
このお昼ご飯は美味しいです。
This lunch is tasty. お昼
ご飯を食べます。
There are also polite and plain forms for this. For like food, for the meals. Like, for example, you could also say 昼飯を食べる。昼飯 is the very, very plain rough way of saying lunch. 朝飯、昼飯、晩飯。Meshi is also rice, but it's just a very rather impolite way of saying it, a very plain way of
こ
saying
の
it.
朝ごはんは美味しいです。
This breakfast is tasty. I to interrupt your tasty breakfast. そのメニュー。
メニューお昼ご飯を食べます。
I eat lunch. この朝ごはんは美味しいです。
この晩ご飯は美味しいで
This
す。
dinner is tasty. Okay, well, thank you for dropping by. I try to do this kind of most days on the weekend. I mean, not on the weekends. Most days in the afternoons. This is more about studying Duolingo than it is about studying things on Duolingo. Because people are always asking me what I think about it, and until very recently, I'd never done anything with it. So I wanted to know and really get to know Duolingo well. And so I've been doing that. その椅子は
椅子はいくらですか？
Like Japanese, for example, is a language that I've been properly fluent in and like fluent enough that I get confused with native speakers in since what, about 2000 or so.
番
その机は
その
机ってどこだ
机
はいくらですか？
ですか？
午前8時に朝ごはんを食べます。
Breakfast at 8 a.m. 早起きしてるのね。午後
午後
7時
時
に晩ご飯
晩ご
を
飯を
食
食べ
べます。
ます。
Have a good night, and I hope to see you again. Thank you again for the follow. I'm trying to get up to affiliate status here, and everyone counts.
そのメニュー
That menu. 午前
午前
11
11
時
時
に
に
お昼 I mean, you can also say
お
お昼を食べます。Let's see
食
if
べ
it'll
ます
accept it.
午後7時に晩ご飯を食べます。
Eat dinner at 7 p.m. 午前
午前
11
1
時
時
に
に
お昼ご
お昼
飯を
ご飯を
食べ
食べ
ま。
ますす。
Oh, and I see somebody has joined us. Welcome to the new viewer. Good to see you. What we're doing here is speedrunning Duolingo in 36 languages. Basically, I'm trying to get to know Duolingo because people who know me and know that I'm like a big language person have been asking me all about Duolingo, you know, what I think of it for years and years, ever since it came out. And the thing is, I've never done anything with Duolingo, so I'm trying to get to know it and see what its strengths and weaknesses are, and also use it to farm content, because I'm really bad at coming up with topics to talk about. So it's useful to have something like Duolingo that throws these language-related topics at me without my having to come up with them in the first place. Right now, we are legendarying up in Japanese as part of our ranking climb to get to the top of the Emerald League. 食堂、またもや食堂か。
食堂
ステ
ステーキ
ーキは
は
食べません。
どのテーブルですか？
Which table is it? わかんねえだろ。このステーキって美味しいな。
このステーキは美味
美味
しい
しいね。
ね。
このお茶はまずいです。
This tea tastes bad. ああ、米国のお茶だろう。その椅子はいくらですか？
か
このステーキは美味しいですね。
Steak is tasty. このお茶は
は
まずいです。
です
このステーキは美味しいですね。
Steak is delicious. Okay, so it does not acknowledge the option of synonyms in this case.
あの机はいくらですか？
How much is that desk? Put a little bookmark in chat since I can't see the window. I can only see the edge of the window when I am doing Duo, so I can see when new comments come in. 食堂
食
で
堂で
朝
朝
ご
ご
飯
飯
を
を
食べ
食べ
ま
ますす。
まずいです。
It tastes bad. どの
どん
椅子です
で
か？
か
食堂でお昼ご飯を食べます。
Eat lunch at the canteen. ここは
ここは
食堂です。
です。
あの椅子はいくらですか？
How much is that chair? 英語で
で
お願いします。
どの机ですか？
Which desk is it? Okay. I have legendarized. And let's see. 1817. And trying to see how close I can. I'm probably not going to manage it tonight. So I am a bit tired. Didn't get to Alejandro Noventaise, who's at 3245 and is at the very top of this particular league table. So, and it is time to pick another language. So, I'm going to get the eye mask of randomization here. And we're going to see where I end up. Nobody knows. Least of all me. In fact, you'll know before I do. And it's time for some Swahili. Cool. Haven't done Swahili in a bit. Hmm.
mchezo
Game? Mchezo.
Mchezo wetu.
Mchezo
Wetu.
wetu. It's a good game, I think. Oh, wetu. Our.
Mlango wangu.
My lango. Mother? Door.
Mti mrefu.
Tall. Tree? Mrefu. Okay. Mti, tree, mrefu, tall.
mto mkubwa
Big door. It's not plural. Because that's wa. Kubwa. River?
Mzigo wake.
Mzigo. Plant, I think. Package. Mzigo. Package.
mfuko wangu
My mfuko. Drawing. See, and this is just these are totally new words. So this is kind of a frustrating way. See, this is a language. I have 3 different levels of languages on here, 3 different categories. There are my native languages and working languages, like Japanese is one of the latter, that I already am fluent and use them professionally. Then you've got a large number of languages that I have some familiarity with, but am not all that fluent in. Then you have languages like, say, Swahili, or Guarani, or Navajo, that I know virtually nothing about. And so I'm getting to see it from multiple different sort of perspectives as a result. And from the perspective of somebody who doesn't know anything about Swahili except for very general things about how the language works, this is actually a very frustrating way of learning vocabulary, to just get marked wrong on things where I only know, where it's words I've never heard and I'm given absolutely no point of reference. That's not great. Like, give me something here. So that's my bag. Mfuko is bag.
ninacheza muziki
Ninacheza I am playing music. Ninacheza.
Mji wa Tanzania.
Okay. The mji. Town of Tanzanians? Mji is town, okay. Mti wangu. Mzigo wangu? Mzigo wa mdogo. Ninapenda muziki. Fuko. Lango wa mwalimu. Mto wa mtoto. Njiwa wa Tanzania.
Mlango wangu.
My door.
Mzigo wake.
Her package.
Mfuko wangu.
My bag. Mpira.
Mpira. Mipira.
Balls.
Misumari.
Nails? I don't know. Misumari.
Misikiti.
Mosques.
Mikuki.
Uki. Spears.
Ninapenda misitu.
I like forests. Ninapenda misitu.
Misitu yao.
Their forests.
Misumari na mizizi.
Nails? Nails and roots. Misumari na mizizi.
Misikiti yetu.
Our mosques.
Misumari yangu.
My nails. Misumari yangu.
Miavuli ya mama.
Mom's miavuli. Umbrellas.
Miavuli yako.
Your umbrellas. Miavuli.
Mipira yenu.
Mipira
Mipira yenu. Wanaenda misikitini.
They are going to the mosques, I think.
Mchezo wa mikuki.
Game of spears?
Mizizi ya mti.
The tree's roots. Okay, that's literally the exact same thing.
Misitu yetu.
Our was forest, misitu.
Misumari na mizizi.
Nails and roots. Like, that is not a phrase that I can think of a single reason that you would just sort of apropos of nothing say that. Which is not great.
Mizizi ya mti.
The roots of the tree. To 4. Mchuzi.
Mchuzi. Mchuzi wa Saidi.
Mchuzi wa Saidi. Saidi sauce. Mchuzi.
Mkutano.
Mkutano. Meeting.
Baba anaenda mkutanoni.
Baba anaenda mkutanoni. Father is going to a meeting. Okay, so ni at the end indicates motion towards. Anaenda mkutanoni.
Ninapenda mchuzi.
I love sauce. Oh, hello, Nova Van Buren. Thank you for the follow. The newest course? What, like the newest on Duolingo? I actually don't know. I think this is not a beta course,
Baka.
though. Baka. But I'm gonna say border. It's the only other thing capitalized. Baka.
Mradi mkubwa.
A big mradi farm? I don't know. Just randomly guessing here. Project. Mradi is project, okay?
Mkasi wangu.
My mkasi. Scissors has to be. Mkasi.
Tunahitaji mfereji.
We need a fereji. Bug? Canal. Okay.
Mpaka mrefu.
Mpaka mrefu. Gonna say long boundary?
Mpaka wetu.
Our mpaka boundary.
Tunahitaji mkasi.
We need the scissors. I believe.
Mkasi wa Rashidi.
Rashidi's scissors.
Wamarekani wanaenda mkutanoni.
Americans go to a meeting.
Mradi.
Project. Mradi.
Mfereji mrefu.
Long canal.
Mfereji wetu.
Our canal.
Mradi mkubwa.
A big project.
Tunahitaji mfereji.
Where are you joining us from, Nova? Nahitaji mfereji. Need a canal. I need water. Three or four.
Mche.
Che. Seedling, I think.
Mtumbwi wangu.
My mtumbwi. Drawing? Oh, just where are you joining us from? Oh, mtumbwi. Yeah, is canoe.
Mtumbwi wa baba.
Mtumbwi wa baba.
Mtumbwi wa baba.
Oh, this canoe.
Michoro.
Drawings. Just what it sounds very different if you speak Spanish. Ah, quelle partie?
Wanapenda miti.
They love trees. Adore les arbres.
Anahitaji mmea wake.
He needs his mare. Plant? No, guest. Oh, no, it was plant. Okay, he needs his plant.
Mimea.
Plants.
Mchoro wake.
Her drawing.
Mnyororo wake.
His nyororo. Chain. Ah, est-ce que tu parles breton? J'aimerais bien l'apprendre.
Mkeka.
See. Rug? Oh, or mat, okay. Je ne sais que Roscoe. Roscoe, Brège, Et c'est déjà tout. Yeah, I know. I'd love to do. I would love to do Breton. Like they have Welsh, and they have Irish, and they have Scottish Gaelic, but they need Cornish, they need Breton, they need Manx. Those are the ones. Like I mean, of course, finding people to create a Manx or a Cornish course. Well, then again, the people who actually know Cornish and are really trying to revive Cornish and Manx tend to be pretty enthusiastic about it. So maybe there would actually be a demand to do it. I always find Breton very interesting because like the place names there. You know, you'll see all these place names, you know, just fairly standard like French place names, and then you will see place names beginning at tre, hen, der, and it's like, oh god, it's like Welsh but pronounced differently. In fact, I mean, the Brège, like l'hymne national de la Bretagne, c'est l'hymne gallois, mais traduit. Mea Asha, no, mzuri, mdogo, mti ni mea, michoro yamiti. Yeah. Well, I mean, they're all Celtic languages. Like Welsh and Cornish are extremely similar, and then apparently Cornish and Breton are also very close. Because there was a lot of very long-standing trade between Bretons and Cornish people going back centuries. I have some book of stories in Cornish that talks about it. I picked up when I visited Cornwall a few years back. Chorowake. O design. Nyororowake. Kekamzuri.
Mtumbwi wangu.
My canoe, mtumbwi wangu.
Anahitaji mmea wake.
He needs his plant. Don't we all? We all need his plant. Okay, we've leveled up. Let's see, XP to 1870. Et il est l'heure de changer de langue. Ce qu'on fait d'une façon randomisée. Comme ça. And where are we heading? Okay, Chinese via Japanese. Okay. Cool.
Meow.
Ah, yeah, like you mean, is it Carnival? Meow.
Meow.
Que.
Hi.
Que. Que. Meow.
Meow.
Ah, Cornouaille. Yeah. Oh, interesting. Yeah, of course. It occurs to me I've never heard the French. I know that the Italian is Cornovaglia. So it doesn't surprise me to be Cornouaille.
Meow.
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 何と言っていますか? Que. Oui.
随
Meow.
鸟
Yuan.
圆
Oh.
物客
I lived in Wales for a while. Que.
客
À Cardiff. Que. Que.
客
Que.
歌
Me.
梅
Ai.
爱
Meow.
鸟
何時10分前です。じゃあ、 下月份起点。起点加月份就。
给我10秒。
I had my familiarity with Breton is very limited. With Bretagne is very limited. I took the ferry from. I was going to Paris. I took the ferry from Plymouth to Roscoe, and spent a day there because les CCF faisaient la grève et il fallait attendre un peu. ごえた通りに入力してください。
给我10秒。
给我 Give me 10 seconds. Yes. So I'd ended up just hanging out there until the replacement bus to, what is it? Hey, they're polyglots. Actually, Frühmorgen, that exists. Yeah, you can say, like, in the early morning, Frühmorgens. 私たちには、我们有30秒。
9点差1刻。
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, German, you can just sort of stack words and generally you probably aren't going to be in trouble. Like, I mean, a tip I give to learners a lot of the time is if you're not sure about the gender of a word, you pop something on the end of it that you know the gender of, but that and it doesn't, adversely affect your meaning, and you're okay suddenly.
7点差10分。
Okay. No, not Norwegian. I need Japanese. Where's my there we go. Nanaji. Chupumai. Like, you're gonna pretty much always just throw situations, situation on the end of things, and you'll probably be okay. Because, as George Carlin once remarked, everything's a situation.
他昨天晚上9点3刻睡觉。
Okay, I need to hear that again.
他昨天晚上9点3刻睡觉。他昨天晚上9点3刻睡觉。
他
他昨天晚上9点3刻睡觉。
Okay, he goes to bed at 9:45 tomorrow. He went to bed last night at 9:45.
我们有30秒。
Japanese again. Hey, 正解のはずだ。彼女は昨夜9時45分に寝ました。 他昨天晚上9点上课。睡觉。
现在差一刻5点。
Yes, actually. Guarani, it would be an example of that. Swahili, I've done very, very little with, to the extent that you could say I've basically done nothing with it at all. Same with Navajo. Those would be the three out of the, 37, I guess, 36, that I have done absolutely, that I know nothing about. Those are the ones where I'm coming in at the level of a more or less absolute beginner. 现在差一个5点。今5時15分前です。
我们有30秒。
私たちに30秒があります。
我们有30秒。
私たちに30秒あります。そうとも言える。はい。同じことだろ
う。我们有30秒。
私たちには30秒あります。中 Yeah, exactly. Because in the with the ones they're the most heavy lifting is being done by Duolingo's method. And those are the ones, and I have to say, one of the things, the conclusions I've reached in doing this for the past month or so is no, I totally understood it. Well, what have you been having? Oh. I'm gonna do a Duolingo and Jack and Coke challenge sometime. But the ones that the languages, oh God, I miss weed. I have no connections for it around here. The languages that I have benefited the most from Duolingo with are the languages I already knew a good deal about, where I was really just kind of learning additional things to add to the structure of the language that I already had in my head, as opposed to the ones where I'm learning it totally from scratch, like Navajo, for example, to a lesser extent Swahili, because I do have an understanding of the general way, the grammar of Swahili, a Bantu language? We're gonna find out. Bantu languages. Well, I didn't mean to put it in Chinese. List. Soto Tswana Venda. Let's see, is Swahili? There are lots of them. Oh, it is a Bantu language. I thought so. And Bantu languages have a thing with prefixes that are used as classifiers and also do a lot of the heavy lifting with verb conjugations and stuff like that. Yeah, I thought it was Bantu. Because it grammatically works a lot like Zulu and like Xhosa and Isindebele and those. So I have that much of a knowledge of it and a few words. But beyond that, I don't really have anything, and I'm finding it frustrating as hell.
小
Jiao.
小10
Shi?
10 10
Shi?
10
小
小小
小
小
课
课
中
中
秒
秒
是
时小
小
中
中
中
Actually, I haven't, but sounds like it might be worth having. Let's have a look at what it says. Link a new window. Oh, wow, okay. Oh, this looks really handy. Thank you. Good tip. Huh.
课
中
中
小
小
秒
秒
时
时。你每天用几个小时电脑？
Okay, gotta change the bollocks, not to German. I need it in Chinese again.
你每天用几个小时电脑？
你每天用几个小时电脑 How many hours a day do you use the computer?
你每天用几个小时电脑？
Oh, wow, that is cool. That is a really good research.
坐地
Resource.
铁需要10分钟。
地下鉄で10分かかります。
需要几个小时？
Chinese again. Be nice if they had a way to group keyboard layouts in Windows. Like, I'm switching between Japanese and Chinese here. And instead of having to scroll through fucking Norwegian and Mongolian and Kazakh and bloody, Bosnian and stuff, it would be nice if I could just sort of alternate, just alt-tab between Japanese and Korean. 聞こえた通りに入力してください。
需要几个小时？
How many hours does it take?
1分钟也不想等。
1分も待ちたくありません。I don't want to wait even 1 minute. またもや中国の入力。你每天用几 Oh, that's handy. It saved it for me, so it's just 你每天有几个小时电脑？约1分钟不想等。Oh, yeah, it goes after minute. Yeah, but then the annoying thing is I switch languages so many times, sometimes in a sentence, and the autocorrect never comes along with me. I prefer a proper keyboard. 需要一个小时。1分钟也不想等。 That reminds me of how I learned the German Sign Language alphabet. It was 1996 Oktoberfest in Munich. I had no experience with drinking at the time at all. And they sell beer by the liter there, and all I'd had the entire day was chips. Like, just one little portion of chips. So, you know, the school I was going to had more or less taken over an entire beer tent, and so a couple of tables anyway, a couple of really long tables. And so I'm sitting there with my host brother, and I have one, and it's quite nice, and I'm enjoying it. Very good beer, Paulana. And then my friend Jakob, he's like, want to have another? It's on me. I'm like, yeah, cool, why not? Okay, so I have another liter, fucking liter of beer on a more or less empty stomach with no experience, and I'm sitting down, and when you're sitting down, you do not, unless you already know, like, what you can handle, when you're sitting down, you have no idea, because you've got something else externally stabilizing you. So I'm sitting down, and I have, like, see, that's another really cool thing that's something I'd really love to do. I wonder if they would be able to do a course like that. It would be more complicated to do a course like that for Duolingo. You'd need to use... Oh God, no. Kein Weißbier. Das Zeug kann ich überhaupt nicht riechen. Weißbier... Ugh. Nein, das ist zum Kotzen, finde ich das. Yeah, no, not white beer. It was just regular, good, old-fashioned Pils. And so I'm having the second liter of beer while we're talking. And Riesling. I do like a nice Riesling. And then I finish that, and then somebody sort of keels over next to me, and he leaves half a liter. So I'm like, I feel pretty good. I mean, at this point, I'm feeling I could like conquer the fucking world. Actually, I'm 17 on an empty stomach, and I have 2 liters of beer in my stomach. Well, so my stomach is not entirely empty at this point either. So I start drinking that, and then my host brother, he's like, "Yeah, I'll probably get home. It's a bit late." And then I stand up, and that did not last long. I fell. Oh, Gewürztraminer. Das mag ich auch. I fell face down into the fucking gravel. And so Jakob and my host brother, they sort of drag me and my bike to the U-Bahn, and we get back to our place, and they start filling me up with coffee. I'm like, I think I'm gonna fucking hurl if I have coffee. It's like, no, that's the idea. You'll feel better, believe, trust us. I mean, they're from Munich. They have experience. I had absolutely none. But I ended up on the bathroom floor, the upstairs bathroom floor in that house, and I could not move from the spot. And they had all these posters in the bathroom. One of them was a framed poster of the German Sign Language alphabet, which turns out to be identical to the ASL alphabet as well. And I couldn't do anything. I couldn't get up. Everything, the whole world started spinning the minute I started to even try to change positions. So I'm just flat on this, like, slate floor, staring up at this thing going, until I had it memorized. I've since forgotten it for just lack of opportunities to use it. But, so I just spent like 3 hours that night. Or I lost track of time. Eventually I fell asleep, and they found me in the morning lying there. It's like, oh, you had quite a night, didn't you?
Joe.
现在几点钟？
今何時ですか？今何時です ですか？课
课
是
时
整
整
秒
秒
钟。
钟。
我昨天很晚回家。
我昨天很晚回家。我昨天很晚回家。I got home really late last night.
你太晚了。
Okay, bonne journée. Merci pour venir. I'm here pretty much every day. Actually, you raise a question that I don't know the answer to. I guess the umlauts are just you add the letter E after it. I don't know. You can find me here most afternoons or evenings. Your time. Yeah. Instead of. And love to see you again here. I always like to see new people here. This is starting to become a lively place, and I'm enjoying it. 你台湾了。遅くなったじゃないか。
昨天晚上他很晚睡觉。
昨天晚上。
昨天晚上他很晚睡觉。
Oh shit. Yes, of course. Oh hey, yeah, and feel free to add me as well. I am hyper polyglotting with Elise. Well, I think I'm at 51 followers. So it's the, let me see, achievements. Where am I? Weird, it still says 49. Path to affiliate. Stream for 8 hours? Well, I kind of managed that. Stream on 7 different days? Yeah, managed that. Average of 3 viewers? Getting there. 2,
现在2点钟。
今2時です。
他每天很早起床。
他每天很早起床。他每天很早起床。我们下午3点会见朋友。Yeah, that's what I've noticed. The more, the more I've streamed and the longer I've streamed, the more likely people will randomly come in at a moment where I'm saying something and, where it's like exciting or interesting or whatever, as opposed to the moments where I haven't really got much to say. And it gets there. Yeah, I mean, it's the same thing with a lot of things, I think. The more chances people have to see you, the more likely they are to be interested.
现在2点整。
今2時です。ちょうど2時ちょうど。bollocks. ちょうどです。それでも正解だろう。Okay. Chinese keyboard I'm still getting used to. 9時ちょうどに私たちは学校に着かなければなりません。We gotta get to school by exactly 9 o'clock. 我们9点要到学校。Oh yeah, it's true. I mean, it's actually true with Japanese too, for similar reasons, and Korean because the words take up way less space. I mean, Japanese less so because you have a lot of syllabic stuff, but the more Chinese characters you use, the fewer characters you actually need in order to say pretty much anything. So yeah, Twitter is much easier when you're using a language that does not require a lot of characters in order to say a whole lot of things.
我明天要很早上班。
很早上班。他也讲很早起床。ちょうどに私は病院に着かなければなりません。I gotta get to the hospital by exactly 4 o'clock. 我4点钟要到10点钟我要到医院。I think that's also mine is also corrected. 我将很晚回家。
你太晚了。
お前は遅すぎる。Let's see if it'll accept this. Oh wow, yes. Okay. See, I was just testing a different speech level because 你太晚了 can be like polite or can be very impolite. And あなたは遅すぎます is actually quite polite. But お前は遅すぎる is not. It is actually quite the opposite. But it does mean the same thing. It is an acceptable, accurate translation. So I was curious, and it accepted it. So good job there. 頑張ったね。
昨天晚上他很晚睡觉。
昨天晚上他很晚睡觉。昨天晚上他很晚睡觉。
现在2点整。
今は2時です。今は2時ちょうどです。And I think we're going to call it a night after I finish this. お前はもう死んでいる。I sort of knew that was coming. Yes. 4点钟 要到医院。本日 451XP 獲得 and I've leveled up, and I actually think I'm gonna call it a night. Actually, it's a bit anticlimactic. Well, no, I didn't mean to start this yet. I'm gonna do that later. Now let's just see. 1911, and Alejandro 96 has 3245. Oh, I got 3 lingots. And thought I had a new follower on here. Oh yeah, here we go. For some reason, when you're in the Japanese version, it doesn't. Yeah, that was Chinese from Japanese. I have Chinese from Japanese and Korean for Japanese in here just for the memes, just for the challenge. And let's see. Yeah. Okay, so thank you to everybody who's come. Thank you, Ether Polyglots. Always nice to see you here. Thank you to Noah Van Buren. Always love to see new people. Oh, well, the Japanese part of it is easy. It's the Chinese part that's a pain in the ass because, see, the thing about when you do Korean and Chinese from Japanese is that there are certain aspects of each of them that are easier for Japanese speakers in the first place. So they sort of, so actually you end up getting longer and more complicated sentences than like Korean from English and Chinese from English. But I mean, especially in the Korean. So you have to listen a lot more carefully when they give you those audios and everything. But I am going to call it a night. I'm actually kind of not feeling all that great. I was already really aching from having to carry a bunch of shit around today, and then I had to mow the lawn, and I also got my booster, and so in addition to the aches I already had, I feel like I just got hit in the arm with a cricket bat. Yeah. Yeah, why not? Why not? All for it. Be interesting. And plus, Italian's just lovely. I love speaking Italian. So, have a good night. Enjoy your munchies. Hopefully, you have snacks already prepared. And I'll be seeing you probably in the afternoon. Have a good night.